Welcome to the Modern CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping accounting firms achieve success. If you're an accounting firm owner who wants to learn how to grow your firm by providing virtual CFO services, then this podcast is for you.
So welcome to another episode of the Modern CPA Success Show. So I'm joined today by Iralma Pozo. So Iralma is one of our full-time virtual CFOs at Summit CPA Group. Iralma, welcome to today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what we're going to talk about today is the top 3 tips to avoid burnout. And I think almost every CPA will look and say at some point the jobs can get really busy. And CPAs love to talk about busy tax season, busy this and that. And so we'd love to hear kind of what those things are. So maybe at the very beginning, you want to tell us just why this is an important topic to you?
Well, this is important for me because I care about our profession and I know that we're always busy. So especially as we're doing things like advisory work, tax planning, things that are more forward thinking, there's no stop. And you have to make sure that you're managing yourself and helping others to avoid burnout. You have to be very proactive about it.
Yeah. And so in the short term, would you agree in the short term, you can stretch, you can do all these things, but over a long haul, that burnout can get to where you just can't continue it?
Yes, because busy seasons are no longer just contained in one season. Yeah. They're just like global warming. They're over the place.
Oh, okay, I like the analogy. Okay, so top 3 tips. Do you want to tell us what the 3 are and then we can go through them?
The top 3 tips are self-awareness, self-care, and communicating and setting boundaries.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Do we want to talk about self-awareness for a little bit?
So self-awareness is very important for us because we are helping other people to work on their businesses, on their systems. When working with small businesses, for example, we are always talking to people about things that are very personal to them, like their business is their baby. And people react with you a certain ways. So you have to make sure that you understand how you operate, how you respond to things, so that you manage that. You manage your communication with others. So taking the assessments is very important. I know people don't like always getting psychoanalyzed, but you have to do it for yourself. So, you have the chronotype test where they tell you when you work best, so you know when to focus. You have the Myers-Briggs. I hope I'm not mixing the name.
Sure.
So that you really know, you know how you react and what you should be doing. And you have the DISC assessment, which we use, which is really great, so that you know how your team members receive feedback. And I like to use stakeholders because team members is just like the immediate people you work with, but stakeholders is your clients, your colleagues, the people, the vendors, the other people in your network. Very important for you to be able to understand how you perceive yourself and how you're talking to yourself and what works for you, so that you're not going out there and just taking on the world without realizing how it's going to affect you.
Yeah. I like the way you're presenting the unique nature of that. And it's sort of obvious now when I think about it, but it is really easy when you hear top 3 tips to think, oh, these are the things that are going to work for every single person. And obviously that's not true for that.
Every single person is different. So you have to make sure that just like you when you create plans for clients, you're creating them for that specific business, for that specific department. Mm-hmm. We have to do that on ourselves because we're like the CEO of our life, and we have to treat ourselves like a business or like a project to a degree.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you mind sharing maybe 1 or 2 things that you've learned about yourself from assessments?
Yes.
And I'll be happy to share a couple things I can think of. But
I've learned that I'm very empathetic and that I have to be very careful managing my energy. And that I also, negativity is very draining for me. So imagine I can feel other people's negativity, and their, things they're going through, and really be able to help them to get through it. However, if something is not constructive, that kind of brings me down a bit. So I always try to prepare myself for difficult conversations and really ask good questions so I can get out of other people, what I need to do to improve myself, to improve whatever interactions I have with them and the relationships I have with them. And also understanding, just because I understand someone is going through something, I may not be the person to help them. So not trying to be, in that savior mode that sometimes people get, especially, you may be the only one working on something and you try to do it all. You can't really do that. You have to kind of assess the situation and then go and get the right help from the right team. So kind of being like the orchestra director. And, if someone is playing out of tune, helping them with that and making sure they get back to the rhythm, but not thinking that you have to go play their instrument for them. Just noticing things and facilitating it for them instead of, like they say in education, caring but not caretaking. You can't take on everything.
Okay. Okay.
Are you interested in offering virtual CFO services at your firm or scaling your existing service offerings? The Virtual CFO Playbook, How to Land $60,000 a Year Clients and Provide a Killer Client Experience, is an online series of modules that will equip you with essential tools for creating and delivering scalable VCFO services. These approaches have helped Summit CPA grow from $500,000 to upwards of $5 million in revenue over the past decade. If you're ready to grow your firm, visit summitcpa.net/VCFO Playbook to enroll now.
So I'm curious, process-wise, when you did these assessments, is most of this learning things that you got on your own from reading the results, or did you get help from other people who maybe talked you through the assessments or classes, or kind of what was the best way you used to interpret the results?
I like taking CP that's kind of self-development as well. So
Okay.
communication and just, getting organized. I know you're a big fan of getting things done. So
Uh-huh.
things like that, like reading things like that, that's like, okay, this is a system that you can follow and make it work for you and just be consistent with it. So being organized, very important. Always like reflecting on what I'm doing, and if I need to, adjust a change, like just make sure that I have I plan out what I need to do.
Okay.
So it's been a mix of, very high level suggestions from others, taking courses on my own, reading, and things of that nature.
Okay. And for me, I'll mention a couple things just to give people other ideas. Two things I've learned through these kinds of assessments are I'm more introverted than I would have thought. And so as much as I love talking to people and I do get energy from that, I definitely need some quiet time. And the other thing I'll mention how I manage these things. Planning and kind of organizing work, you mentioned GTD, things like that, I actually get energy from doing those kinds of things. So those have helped a lot, but the introverted time, I need to block some time during the weeks to have some focus, quiet time. And the nature of our job, your job, my job, is we spend a lot of time in these kinds of meetings with clients. And as much as I like that, when that's constant, I find that draining. And so I need to specifically plan that kind of time.
Yes, that's very important because the last time I took the Myers-Briggs, it says I'm more extroverted than I used to be, but I
Oh,
still
okay.
feel pretty introverted and I need time to just let my brain breathe and reflect on things and get organized. So sometimes, I'll set up some administrative time on a Friday, or sometime every day, but I have to have that as well. I can't, have 12 meetings and give, and give
Yeah,
feedback and everything, and then it's a lot. So making
sure.
sure that you understand how that works for you. Some people, they can go 12 hours and have like 50 meetings and be fine and just go
Yep,
to the gym the next minute. But understanding that is very important because people, they are going to see your schedules open and have a meeting with you.
sure.
So you have to, it's your job to be able to say, no, I can't really speak to you right now. Um, let's coordinate for another time.
Hmm.
When possible, when feasible, we also have to be flexible.
Yeah. Any other things about self-awareness? So now kind of the person you are, what's important to me, what things are there. Other points around self-awareness?
Well, we'll talk about boundaries, but making sure that once you know who you are and you continue doing that deep work, that you don't let other people tell you who you are because you are who you are. So it's
Yeah,
not like this is me and just take it. Like, like there's some people that, but it's making sure you really know who you are is like if you know you're going to be falling asleep at 5 o'clock in the morning, if you have a meeting, don't have important meetings at 5 o'clock in the morning
hmm,
because you're not going to do your best job. And you should push back about that if it's possible.
yeah,
Obviously, if it's a lifetime opportunity with a client, you can't say no if you have to present at a conference at 5 o'clock in the morning because it's another country, right? That's
yes,
not how it works. So really making sure that you use the self-awareness as part of your career map, not just I'm here and I'll deal with whatever people throw at me.
yeah. I think that's a great point. Both of us know Zach, who mentors and coaches all of us within our firm. And one of the tips he had given me is so my most productive time is first thing in the morning. That I usually don't have meetings till 9:30 or 10, and that's when I can really focus. And he cautioned me from spending all of that time working on email. And he said, that's often just very quick, get things done. And so usually in the morning, I'll glance quickly email and just basically see if sort of any fire needs to be dealt with. And then his suggestion was use that time for your focus time. And later in the day, maybe between meetings when you're doing, then you can address your email kinds of things.
That's very
And so,
important.
yeah,
Yes,
I think
to
that kind
set
of
the
thing
tone
is
for
really
your
helpful.
day. Yeah.
Yep. To know that. I also happen to know I am a morning person. I wouldn't do 5 o'clock in the morning meetings. I hope nobody does. But I know for myself, probably past 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, I don't think very clearly. So me planning a day that would say, okay, I know it's a really busy thing, but I'll get this done tonight and I'll work till 11 o'clock at night. And I've got team members who say, no, I'm fine that, maybe I've got young kids and I'll get them to bed and then I can work. I just know when I sit up at that time, I'll sit and stare at a spreadsheet and can't figure out the answer. And maybe the next morning I glance and it seems like it's right there. And I had spent 45 minutes before looking at it.
Yes, I never did that until I went to grad school, and then it's very draining to do it now. So I
Yeah.
try to make sure that I really manage my time to get things done before like 8 o'clock, because I can't really, if I have to put in a few hours in the weekend, I'll do it versus
Yeah.
staying up.
Yeah. Sounds like we're similar. Okay. So know yourself. That's a really important thing. I love the self-awareness. Should we move on to self-care then?
Sure. So self-care, I know with our deadlines
Mm-hmm.
and all of our responsibilities outside and inside work, people say, you know what? I don't need to eat lunch. I'll sleep tomorrow. I'll sleep when I die. I'll drink coffee. That's not acceptable if you're always busy, right? Like, the better you take care of yourself, the worse your body's going to treat you when you don't. So if you normally like
Mm,
always exercising and eating well, you're going to crash sooner. Well, that's not, there's no Harvard study or something that I have found saying that, but that's been my experience, that the better
mm-hmm.
you treat yourself, the worse it's going to be when you don't treat yourself well. So I used to be the lunch police in certain jobs. Colleagues were tired of me saying, "Did you eat lunch? Because I'm going to cancel this meeting and have it when you come back." Um, because I personally, like, if I don't eat by 2 o'clock, I'm done. There's no
Mm-hmm.
need to even speak to me, because I'm just going to be not functioning very well if I eat like at 7 and then it's 2 o'clock. So nutrition is very important. Sleep, fitness, and energy. Now, I'm not saying go run a marathon. I've been there, done that. When I say fitness, we're sitting all day. Like, I know that you have your adjustable desk.
Yep.
Um, some people have a treadmill underneath their desk. I've worked with people who did get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym, and
Mm-hmm.
then go back home and iron their clothes and go to work. So finding something to do. And they have all these apps now that you can just log on and do 15-minute yoga, stretching. You don't want to hurt
Mm-hmm.
yourself, right? Because if you hurt yourself, you can't sit all day. But if you sit all day, you're hurting yourself. Your energy, managing your energy. So people manage their time, but they don't manage their energy. So back to, can you work after 8:30? No, but you can probably read for an hour if you wanted to. So, doing the things that aligning your energy with what you're doing. Like, if you have a very important client meeting and your brain doesn't wake up until 10:30, then have the meeting at 11, right? Because you need to
Mm-hmm.
just get yourself ready mentally. But don't force yourself to to do things when you don't have energy. Like, your
Yeah.
body is what it is. And then with the sleep, a lot of people say that they don't really pay attention to sleep. So you have to get up a certain time and wake up a certain time every single day. Nap during a certain period if you're a napper. I can't nap because I take 4 hour naps and then it ruins everything. And I would never nap during the day during work hours or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
For
sleep is very
someone though,
important.
that might work. Yeah. Well, and
Sleep
to
is
mention on sleep, we're in a culture that don't we love to brag that we don't get sleep, right? I mean, how often have you heard someone say, I only need or I only get 4.5 hours of sleep a night? And it's this badge of courage that a lot of people wear that is not good.
there are people who naturally their body only requires 4 hours of sleep. Good for them.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have your body wired and have it stressed and and have it like feeling like everything is an emergency.
Right.
And because you want to be present, especially in the line of work that we do, we can't show up to a client meeting all wired up and just rushing them. Like,
Right.
we have to listen, we have to manage the meeting, we have to manage expectations. So if we don't sleep, that's going to reflect, or there's going to be low energy, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think also the nutrition is important, because um, I remember when I was trying to like squeeze more time in my day, and I would just stop at a coffee shop that will remain nameless and just grab a very sugared up coffee
Uh-huh.
and a pastry and a stale pastry and eat it while I was walking to the train station. that was not a real breakfast for me. Like my
Yeah.
family's from the Caribbean, like I want to have a real breakfast. You can't have like a five course breakfast every day,
Right.
but if you
Yeah.
know what your
Something.
body needs, the fuel you need to sit down and be able to focus. So um, I'm not saying don't eat sugar, but make sure you understand what you're eating. That
Hmm.
works for you for the work you're doing. Don't not eat. I think more of the problem is not eating at all
Yeah.
and waiting until people get home or whenever all meetings are done. So they're not people aren't managing their day. Their day is running them, and then it gets to 4 o'clock and no and you haven't eaten. So that's not going to help you. You're working and you're doing um, all this work. Like brain food is real.
Yeah. Do you find it easier or harder, do you think, working at home to eat healthy and not
in a
binge and things like that?
in a sense, it's easier because if I meal prep and I
Mm,
prepare a few and I cook a few things, the food is right there in the fridge and I just have to heat it up for 3 seconds and I can have it. And I can sit down and eat in a proper plate
right.
and have it for like 10, 15 minutes and it's like, all right, I'm at an actual table eating in peace. But if I don't prepare, it's like, oh wait, do I have to order something? Like, what do I do? And then, I'll have to make something really quick. But a lot of people, they are spending extra money and getting things, these weird little prepackaged things, uh, to help them with that, right? To help them from
Yeah.
working from home. Sometimes that has a lot of sodium, and sometimes it has less nutrition. But you have to pick and choose what you're gonna do. So mixing it up.
Yeah.
So it's cheaper to work from home food wise because as you know where I live my state
Yes.
has a high cost of living and
Yep.
lunch can cost you like a dinner in most places.
Right.
So you really have to manage that though. You have to be prepared for it. It can't be, oh, my meeting ran 10 minutes late and now I have to eat lunch and I only have 10 minutes. No, you have to be prepared for it.
Yeah. I like the thinking ahead. Um, for me, just the access to unhealthy snacks is a drawback to being at home. And so what happens to me is I get busy. I've got 5 minutes between meetings and I haven't eaten lunch. So I go down and I grab something really sugary into it. And so I just have to be careful about that. And so you can be conscious and say, okay, it's going to be an apple instead of chocolate or something like that. Your idea of meal prep makes a lot of sense that you can have a nice lunch very quickly if you've planned ahead.
And you shouldn't beat yourself up over that because like I love to eat chocolate, so I don't
Hmm.
consider that junk even if it's the most sugary kind.
Yes.
I try to eat organic, 90%, 70%,
Uh-huh.
whatever it is. But you like what you like and you eat what you eat, just making sure that you're getting the nutrients you need. Because the last thing you want to do is go to the doctor and they say your iron is low, your cholesterol is
Yeah.
low, is high because you haven't been eating. You're
Right.
dehydrated, you haven't been eating, you've been sitting at work at home and you've just been staying there, the sun comes up, the sun comes down and you're still sitting there and you haven't had water all day.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I would emphasize that I think has been maybe a thread throughout all of this is I think consistency is so much more important than intensity in this area. And when you mention things like exercise, so someone who can do 15 minutes a day, if that's what you can do, I think you're in a much better position than saying every weekend, like I'm going to go for a 2 hour run and it's going to be this
Mm.
really intense exercise to do that. I think you're going to get a much more benefit by saying I can carve off. And maybe it is only 15 minutes or 10 minutes to start with that you can do. But I think that would be true about sleep and eating and everything else is like little bits can make a big difference if you do it
It sure
consistently.
can. Consistency is key. Like just like when we set up clients and we have them set up systems that they can do, regardless of how busy they are. Like we have to set up systems for ourselves that we can do regardless of how busy we are. If we only do them 80% of the time, that's better than not doing anything and just letting things fall off the guardrails.
Yeah. Have you seen any trends in or read about any trends that companies are helping employees with self-care? Or do you
I
feel like
haven't.
this really is this has to be a self, I've got to take care of myself only?
I've seen this disconnect where companies have a wellness officer and
Hmm.
and all these things, and then it's like then they have matrix that are based on hours worked. So
Okay.
if you have to make sure that all performance based um, I guess bonuses and things of that nature aren't just based on hours worked because what if somebody gets really fast and good at their job and delegating and automating things and then they're not putting in 2,500 hours a year or
Yeah.
3,000 hours a year or 4,000 hours a year. They're putting in 1800, probably, hopefully not. They're not under working, but they're doing everything efficiently. They've got themselves under control, and then they're slammed with other work, and the vacations get denied, or just there's no flexibility in the schedule. So here
Yeah.
they are. They said they're going to work out every day at lunch, and they can't anymore because they can't block off that time. So there's a disconnect between um, all these great things that we could do to feel great, and companies
Hmm.
offering yoga classes at lunch, and then what frontline managers are telling people sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's like, I've worked with people, and I can say this because I've worked in many places, so I'm not singling anybody out,
Sure.
that they're like, I don't take lunch and you should stay here. Like, go get a granola bar
Uh,
and just come to this meeting. And I'm like, no, change the meeting, because every day we can't do this. We can't just never eat lunch.
yeah.
Or cater the lunch and let us eat for 10 minutes.
Hmm.
And then they had, some wellness programs. So it's like, I can't eat lunch, but you're telling me that you're going to give me points if I work out. When am I going to work out? If I'm passing out in the middle
Yeah.
of the day because you don't let me eat lunch.
Yeah.
So making sure that we lead by example. So if I'm working with someone who's, younger than me, has less experience than me, I'm not going to tell them I'm skipping lunch, because I don't want them to think that's normal.
Hmm.
That's expected of them. Or if I do have to do something, I let them know I'm doing this because of X, Y, and Z. This is not the norm. Like, setting that example, and like I don't want to say be the lunch police like I used to be. Like, oh, I see that your calendar, you said you were going to lunch. So I don't even schedule things around certain hours that I know people
Good.
normally do their things, their self-care things, or their food, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So being very proactive about setting that example and respecting other people's time where possible. Obviously, if we have an emergency, we have an emergency. But it has to be the
Right.
exception. It can't be every day. I'm saying, Tom, can you meet with me? And I've seen on your calendar that you're at lunch or you're working out at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that modeling behavior can be good. I think a couple of other things I have seen have been bosses who will refrain from sending messages on the weekend. And they might batch them up and send them out on Monday, but they're intentionally not sending things out on a Saturday. And it can feel like, I just want to get off my plate. I don't want you to respond over the weekend. But to the employee receiving it, it can be this feeling of, oh, he asked me a question Saturday at noon, I'm supposed to answer this
Um,
weekend. So that could be one example how they could model that.
well, I started working in accounting before they had Wi-Fi.
Uh-huh.
So before they had internet, I'm exaggerating, but so we wouldn't really have access to our emails.
Oh, okay.
But I um, I understand some people really want to make sure they don't forget something. So what I used to do in the past is draft an email to myself
Mm,
and just put all, just literally draft it and send it to myself. Say sent to so and so, or
okay.
just put it on a Word document or something and send it to myself. But people have to understand that everyone is different. So if someone, their way to get organized because they have so much to do is sitting there on Sunday between 10 and 2 and drafting things, like turn off your notifications. So don't always feel that you need to respond to everything, and
Hmm.
have a way to communicate things that are urgent. Like if you have some instant messaging apps, that there is where people put the urgent things that need to be addressed within 2 hours, and use that. But um, yeah, it's very, especially nowadays, people cannot disconnect. Everything is on
Yeah.
your phone. It's constantly pinning you. So we have to be mindful of how we communicate with other people, because we don't want them to think that we're expecting them to do what we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more like, this is how I like communicate. I guess this is kind of a good segue to our next um our
The
next tip.
third one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and one last point about that. So we talked about modeling the behavior. I've heard a number of people in our firm say that we teach our clients how to treat us. And so if I receive a request from a client on the weekend, if I'm in the routine of answering that on the weekend, I'm teaching that client that if they will send me things on the weekend, I'll answer. And I've really encouraged people of saying, you can, if you want to work on that, but I would suggest you not answer them until Monday, unless really it's an emergency.
I
Because
have
then you
literally.
find the clients then getting upset because you said, well, I sent Arama 10 things and she answered me on Saturday. So when she doesn't, now I'm mad. And if you were to complain to me, I would say, well, who taught them it was okay to send stuff on the weekend? And you would honestly say, I answered them 10 times. So I taught them that that's what they should expect.
I learned the hard way early on to never do that. I literally have worked on things that people sent me without letting them know I worked on them
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
a head start. So you do have to set, as with anything, any interactions with people, you have to set this tone. You have to let them know that, this is what we're gonna do. If there's an emergency, if it's a one-off thing,
Sure.
but
Sure.
everything cannot be urgent. Everything has to be
Right.
prioritized, and these are, giving them the communication policy that you have, and how you address emergencies is important.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we're bumping right up against the third tip. You did everything but say the word boundaries in that last answer. So communicating boundaries is that third tip. So you're aware, you're taking care of yourself. So tell us a little bit about the importance of boundaries and communicating them.
So communicating and setting boundaries is about letting people know exactly how you're going to work. So, for example, your
Hmm.
calendar management, right? Uh, Setting the expectations, your end of day and your meeting flow, like how you're going to work during the end of day. Like, let's say, for example, so boundaries are not just about other people; they're also about yourself.
Hmm.
So if you say, you know what, I work from home, I need to let my brain know that I'm done for the day. Like,
Okay.
you shut down your laptop, you put it in your drawer, you put on your sneakers, you go outside and you walk your dog. I don't think you have a dog.
Yeah,
But
cats. Yeah.
so you walk, you take a walk around the
Yes.
corner and you get something, at the store, and you come back and your brain knows I'm done for the day. Right?
Okay.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's something simple. Or you put everything away and you watch a cat video. But then you have to make sure you put a timer, because cat videos are fun and you don't want to watch cat videos all day and
Yeah.
forget to eat dinner. So making sure you have those boundaries of yourself about how you're gonna end your day, how you're gonna,
Hmm.
some people have a reverse commute because for them the issue is starting their day. Like, they just, working from home, someone can just easily get up 5 minutes before they need to be in a meeting and just,
Sure.
and make themselves look presentable and just jump in, as opposed to starting their day, reflecting, eating, whatever it is that they do. Making sure in the meetings that you're letting people know, having an agenda, right? So if we go to a board meeting, I don't think anyone goes to a board meeting without an agenda.
Yep.
You go have an agenda, make sure that if people are going down the rabbit hole, letting them know how you're going to address it, because people need to be feeling like you're listening to them, like that you're seeing them and you're listening to them and you're paying attention to what they're saying, being mindful. But there's a time and place for everything. So if they're bringing up things that have nothing to do with what the meeting is about, then you got to tell them, we're gonna have to talk about this, um, in another meeting, or I'm gonna send you a resource for that. But bringing things back, and with the calendar management, I know someone who says if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening, right? So it can't
Mm.
be that things are all over the place and you don't know what's going on. Like right now, you should know what you're doing tomorrow if possible, right? So making sure you're using those apps and syncing the apps so that it's not, if someone asks you today if you're available at 5, you're not guessing. You can just open it up and see. And sending people links to your calendar is very easy and important, because you don't have to sit there and type up 5 availability dates and times. You can just send them the link, and that takes care of it for itself. Like, some people are really good about putting their calendar link in their email signature. So if someone wants to talk to them, they just go on their calendar and set
Yeah.
that up. And respecting the meetings as well. I used to work with someone who set no buffers in between meetings.
Mm.
So it was like one meeting will start, like, it's okay if you work in a team and the meetings don't have buffers, but this person for their own meetings was overlapping meetings. And they thought I was crazy because I asked them, where are the buffers for these meetings? There should be 15 minutes between each meeting, and then there should be like 1 hour without any meetings. And they thought this was the weirdest thing in the world. But the high level work they were doing, I mean, I would have taken 2 hours after those meetings, because
Yeah.
those meetings were intense. Like, you should sit down and write like a case study after each meeting. Like, they were so intense. So they thought that, this is like a lazy way to work. No, you can't. You have to finish the work that you're doing that moment. Otherwise, it becomes all this homework, and then every day
Yeah.
you just have all these things to catch up on because you didn't manage your calendar.
So you
And
might
then,
schedule 45-minute meetings, for example, right? And
mhm,
then that gives you 15 minutes to hopefully wrap up and prepare so that when you step in the next meeting, whatever documents you need to look at, they're open, you're ready to go. And both of us probably, I know I've had lots of the experiences where I haven't done that, or that I let the 45-minute meeting go late. And as you're introduced, Arama, how's your day going? Blah, blah, blah. I'm frantically trying to open everything and shut things down. And it's a stressful way to start a
mhm.
meeting. And I think I'm not at my best during that time.
Yeah, when I've taught classes, like, I've walked into classrooms and students have, it's okay for them to talk to me when I'm setting up, but I always walk in earlier to set up,
Mm,
because
yeah.
I don't want to open up things while class starts, because it's every moment that passes, you can lose the attention span of the students,
Sure.
and it's over. It's over. Once people start falling asleep in the class, it's over. So making sure that people, they're not sitting there waiting. Like when you go to a show or you go to a game, things are happening right away, right? When it starts, it starts. So
Yeah.
trying to make sure that things are happening as quickly as possible. And then setting expectations with yourself and other people, because I know I'm very hard on myself. But setting expectations, like letting people know, how you work, and asking them what they're expecting of you, being very clear. I find that sometimes, especially in the type of work that we do, a lot of people, they're so busy trying to get things done. They may not communicate at that granular level for certain things. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, do this project, but then what do you mean by do this project? Like, I have like 25 years experience. What does this mean? What exactly is your idea of what the deliverables are versus, because everyone thinks different, or they may not know what you're asking them to do. So
Yeah.
being very detailed to people when you're delegating work to them, what you expect them to do, and when you expect them to do it. Asking questions. I find a lot of people don't manage up very well. It depends on who they're speaking with or what they're doing. If they're new, if they're not new, making sure you're managing up at all times, because if you're working on 10 things, your supervisor's working on 50. There's
Yep.
supervisors working on 1,000.
Sure.
And one misconception, one miscommunication, it can just ruin everyone's timelines for deadlines. No pressure, right? But if like, let's say you have a firm partner who has to spend 3 hours in a meeting with a client for something that was small that just, build up, that's a waste of time and money.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
So
making
to
sure
that
we take
point,
care of things.
so I think with clients that can be really important because that is managing up, right? And I can give you an example recently where it really did help a lot. We're at the beginning of 2023 planning. And so she had asked me, this as our operations director, if I could put together a couple of models for what next year might look like. And she was very ambiguous about what she wanted in there, that it was a little bit of customer growth and some shrinkage of existing customers and some new people. That was about the detail she gave me. And so I said, can you give me a little bit more? And she was a little bit lost. So we spent about 10 minutes going through and saying, so what kind of people, what's the timing? And she was frustrated at first. But what was good is I said, I can make assumptions, but I can almost guarantee you I'll be wrong. And then I'll be showing you a model that from the very beginning you'll want to change things. And after we spent about 10 or 15 minutes, we got very specific about what she wanted in there. And I was saying we can change this after the fact. But I'm positive in her mind, she thought she was very clear with what she wanted. And it was helpful for me to go through that because we had a great conversation when it was done. And there were still some things she wanted to change, but it was better than her changing every single one of the assumptions that I would have done. I mentioned Zach before. He uses the term paint done. What does paint done look like? And describe for me what that is. And so I think that's a really good suggestion that you have.
Yeah, that's very important to have those conversations, because some people, they don't spend the time talking at the beginning, and then you're not framing things right, you're not delivering the right things. Taking that time, it saves time,
Yeah.
because the work gets done on its own.
Yeah. Let me touch on one more thing then that we haven't mentioned. What about the use of working on mobile phones? Right. That has made the office sort of everywhere. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Oh
that and boundaries?
yes, I have worked on my phone underneath hair dryers and salons, to handle emergencies, client emergencies, when I was, doing some work on my own. Um, so my idea of working on phones is, yes, apps should work on your phone in case there's an emergency. You should not be disconnected, because we all have responsibilities, right? It's not like, there's ever an end to the work.
Sure.
So if I'm walking down the street and someone needs to have my attention, and I'm taking an extra 10 minutes walking, like I can't, like, or I need to know that I need to get back so I can have my
Yes.
meeting, right? But so yes, you should have flexibility to have things on your phone, but no, you shouldn't even work on your phone. There's too many distractions.
Yeah.
There, you can go down the rabbit hole. You can start looking at other things. You can start feeling very nervous if you're just being pinned all day. So I think it's best if people work like on their laptop, or I don't think people use desktops anymore, do they?
Yeah.
But just
Work
work
in
on
your
your
office or
computer.
your office environment.
Yeah,
Office
work on
environment.
your
Yeah.
computer. Have a dedicated space to work,
Yeah.
and devices to work with. And the phone should be more of, someone needs to call me. I've allowed this person to call me. We've scheduled a call, or I'm gonna step out because I need air, and I need to make sure that when I need to meet with Tom in 10 minutes, that if for some reason I get stuck in an elevator or I decide to walk down another block, I need to start the meeting early, I can just put my headphones in and start the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not missing anything. I'm not forgetting anything. So yes, all apps. I feel all apps should work on phones. People should have that, but people shouldn't be working on their phone because it's very, it can be very intense. If there's a client, there's a company that the owner wants to be on the beach every month. Yeah, maybe they should be running payroll from their phone. But
Yeah.
if it's work hours, that should not be the place that they're working
Okay.
from.
Yeah. What I think with that, and just to reinforce what you're saying, I think being intentional in what you're doing. And so I agree completely. For me, it can be great if I'm somewhere and see an easy question the client asks and I can get it resolved. And I'm like, I feel good that I got that to you today versus tomorrow. The part that doesn't work well for me is like if I'm watching television with my wife and I'm scrolling through email, I'm not really spending time with her and I'm not really spending time at work. And what I realize about myself is when I get done, I just feel bad that, okay, that I sort of wasted my time. And that's the part I think being intentional of, okay, am I opening up my email for a purpose? Or is it because my phone's conveniently sitting there and I'm just sort of half bored?
So that goes back to setting boundaries for yourself
Yep.
with saying, I'm not working right now. If I forget something, I will record a voice note, send it to myself at work, and not even log in. Like after you
Yeah.
shut down, if it can't be done on your phone, it's not gonna get done.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't open up your iPad and just send yourself something, you shouldn't do it. Unless obviously it's an emergency, but there's no end to this work. There's no stopping. So the work is gonna be there. It's always gonna be there. Like I had a manager who said, if you can't finish it in 2 hours, don't even look at it. Just get up and go.
Okay.
Because that means every day you're gonna put in an extra. There has to be some kind of separate. Like you have to be present when you're there. Like when you're here, you're talking to me, right? You're not thinking about throwing out the trash tonight.
Yeah.
Or you have to go to the supermarket and buy things for, I don't know. So we have to be very intentional about being present as much as possible and like freeing up our minds and being organized and everything. Making sure that we just do a brain dump and just leave it alone. And
Right.
we're only human, by the way.
Of course.
We're only human. So turn off the notifications. Don't even look at it.
Yeah.
Have a notebook that you just write 3 things that come to mind. Every day.
Mm.
Things come to mind every time after you have dinner. You feel good. And, oh, I just remembered. I want to, recommend this book or do this and that. Just write it down somewhere. Like have a
Yeah.
place for it so you don't forget it. But don't go back and fire up your laptop and start working again.
Sure.
People
Okay.
think this is a bad idea, but if you don't separate these things, then it becomes like you don't have a moment to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's kind of put a bow on this. If you are talking to remind us the 3 key points first that you had. So the 3 tips
Sure.
are.
So the 3 tips are self-awareness, self-care, and then communicating and setting boundaries.
Good. Good. So if a person is listening now and saying, what I hear is all the things I'm doing wrong with all these examples, maybe it feels overwhelming to say I can't suddenly be sort of the perfect person doing all these. Any kind of initial tips for say, okay, within the next week, here's a couple practical things to say, at least get yourself started.
Really just sit down with yourself and ask yourself like like I always like to look at the vision. Like what do you like what would you like your life to be like next year?
Okay.
How would you like to feel? Would you like to feel, kind of relaxed walking into meetings and being able to laugh with your colleagues and your clients? Or you want to be wired and rushing to the next thing? How do you want your body to feel? Do you want to feel like if you drop $100 bill, you can pick it up? Or like your back is going to give in? You have to decide because you haven't stretched in so long. You've been sitting so long. So understand thinking of what you want to feel in each area of your life. How you want to feel, what you can take responsibility from really quickly, like things you can do for yourself in 5 minutes every day.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's
Not,
good.
quality over quantity.
Yeah. And since we talked about the consistency, for me, one thing that I would suggest to people is doing something helps and sticking with it. So I think it's fairly impractical for someone to say, I'm going to do all these things. It's going to be a fitness routine, a nutrition routine, a sleeping routine, all that at one time, because most likely you'll be really intense for a short time and then stop doing everything. What I would say you might consider doing is there one thing. And so the one thing I'll mention is maybe Iralma talked about like ending your day is the important thing. And maybe what you say is at the end of the day, I'm going to shut down my laptop and I won't turn it back on until the morning. And that's a big difference from what I do today when I wander away and then I wander back in and keep doing it. And if that's what you're doing, I would suggest that maybe that and say, how is that working? And do that for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And can you then add something to that and work your way toward several months from now that where you're in a very different place? So I think those small steps could really help.
And I guess I'll say if you have not taken any type of assessment, take one. So start to
Yeah.
see how you really are and keep getting to know yourself.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Excellent tips. Hopefully, as people look, that we're in sort of a reflective time of the year where people are kind of getting ready for if it's New Year's resolutions or next year's a new fresh year, something like that, that these can be some good tips that people can take and practice. And these are several things. I think I do some things really well, but I'm certainly not perfect. And so several tips that I'll take that you've
Yes,
suggested.
perfection is not the goal.
Very good. Good. Well, Rama, thank you very much. This has really been helpful.
Great, thank you.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving modern CPA firm success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.